Okay guys, welcome back to my lesson. This is Into Joseph B.D. Men, the advisor for grade 11 ABMB. I'll be your media literacy teacher for today. And first and foremost, our lesson for today will be all about the legal and ethical issues surrounding or in media literacy. So to begin, let's actually first always remember that you can always contact me via either my phone number or my Facebook page and Messenger if you have any queries or questions you want me to actually answer. Okay, so our next query, first we'll establish our classroom rules again. These are: 1, multitasking is prohibited. I need your undivided attention. 2, your questions can be sent through the comment section of this video over here, or or Facebook chat, or via text or phone call. And finally, I need you to stay focused and disciplined. Okay. So what am I expected to learn? So in this particular lesson I prepared, you are expected to: 1, cite practical situations when to apply knowledge in intellectual property, copyright, and fair use guidelines. And 2, create a campaign to combat the digital divide, addiction, and bullying. Okay, so first we'll start off with what is media literacy. Now, to actually help you get a better understanding of this topic, I will be actually playing a video about media literacy shortly after. Then afterwards, I'll have a set of questions to actually gauge your understanding.
Media literacy refers to the capacity to understand, analyze, and critique the media, and to meaningfully participate with messages in print, audio, video, and/or internet discourse. Why be media literate? The prevalence and influence of the media make it a necessary part of 21st century education. The different media, radio, television, print, film, and cyberspace, bombard billions of people daily with information and entertainment. The media cycle never stops. Its reach goes beyond national borders, operating 24/7. Billions access the internet regularly. Media literacy raises the capacity of citizens and citizens groups to participate in public life on another level, giving further meaning to information exchange. They can communicate their ideas and engage meaningfully in democratic debate. Media literacy contributes to the improvement of the quality of discourse on public policy and issues. Media literacy enhances democracy. This skill requires understanding of the ethics of the press. For example, the values and standards of the news media as providers of information, analysis, and opinion, and the different standards that apply to entertainment media. With this skill, individuals can appreciate the different purposes that media have in human development. Informed evaluation of media performance must be based on its ethical principles and on its professional responsibilities. Holding the news media to their own standards is possible only when the public knows what the media do and how they do it. Without media literacy, the public will not hold media organizations to the goals of journalism, which is to provide relevant news that helps citizens evaluate government and other institutions of power.
Questions: 1, what is media literacy? And 2, How important is it in your daily life as a citizen of the 21st century? Now, for this particular case, I will want you to either send me directly via messenger your answers to these two particular questions, or you can just instead write it down on a sheet of yellow bond paper or yellow pad paper, and then actually pass it to me together with the other answer sheets. Okay. So I'm gonna give you time to actually copy these questions. And next slide. First and foremost, we'll start off with a pretest so that I could gauge your understanding of at least what we might be tackling this topic. So first and foremost, 1. The writer provides inaccurate information regarding the sources, making it impossible to find them. Is this A, a misinformer, B, the resourceful citer, C, the perfect rhyme, or D, the self-stealer? Number 2, the writer borrows generously from his or her previous work. Is this an example of an A, the misinformer, B, the resourceful citer, C, the perfect rhyme, or D, the self-stealer? Okay, last question. Number 3, the writer properly cites all sources, paraphrasing and using quotations appropriately. Is this A, the misinformer, B, the resourceful citer, C, the perfect rhyme, or D, the self-stealer? Okay, the answers to these questions are A, number 1, D, number 2, and C, and number 3, letter B. Now, in case you're wondering what those questions were about, those are actually referring to the different types of plagiarism that can actually occur in the real world. Now, plagiarism is a topic we will be tackling later on this lesson, but do note that what we actually were tackling a while ago were the different ways of how you could plagiarize a particular piece of work. So make sure to keep that in mind, because especially when you're going to be heading towards college and you're going to be writing thesis papers, you're going to need to know how to properly cite a piece of work so that you can avoid plagiarism and avoid also long hours of having to redo your work after submitting it to the teacher, only for it to be sent back to you and told that you actually need to redo it due to the fact that their plagiarism machine detected that it was plagiarized. Just speaking from experience here. Okay, next. Concerning media literacy. Media literacy, a lot of what we consider everyday media culture is built on this kind of casual information and content sharing. Think of sharing videos, sharing photos that you see on Facebook, or probably probably discovering a nice photo online that you decide to post and share on your Facebook feed or your Twitter, etc. The media information age, especially the internet, gave tons of people access to tools for communication and media creation, but also opened up many legal loopholes and ethical challenges. Now, these particular legal loopholes and ethical challenges, we'll be tackling that later on in this lesson. But it's very important to note, I'm pretty certain you're aware, that the media and information age, especially the internet, has given you huge access to a lot of information present. Most especially when it comes to actually conducting many of these modular lesson plans. And given its widespread use and the vast majority who now have access to an array of information, media and information have become the subject of legal, ethical, and societal problems. While its positive implications are undeniable, there are issues that come along with it. These issues are what we're going to be tackling today. Intellectual property. This concerns copyright, a legal device that gives the creator of a literary, artistic, musical, or other creative work the sole right to publish and sell that work. Copyright owners have the right to control and reproduce their work, including the right to receive payment for that reproduction. And finally, an author may grant or sell those rights to others, including publishers or recording companies. Now, to actually summarize, intellectual property generally refers to any creative piece of work that you have created, be it a drawing, a piece of music, or a piece of artwork, or even a music video, etc., or even a movie or video game. Those are under copyright. Any piece of creative work that you make that comes from your mind that you decide to make reality with your hands, that is a piece of creative work that is pretty much covered and protected under copyright. As such, copyright owners have the right to control the reproduction of their work, including the right to receive payment for that reproduction. In other words, you have actually control on the distribution and also the replication of your work for the purposes of distribution. This will allow you to ensure that people cannot actually either claim the work as their own, or that people cannot start selling copies of your work without at least, on the contrary, getting permission from you or giving royalties or compensation to you. Which leads to the final part: an author may grant or sell those rights to others, including publishers or recording companies. In the case of publishers or recording companies, think of books that you've read or music that you've heard. Those are published and distributed by recording companies and book publishers. And as such, as the author, you actually have the ability to be able to grant those particular companies the right to be able to distribute your creative piece of work, or you can even get, or the ability to even sell that piece of work. Now on the topic of copyright is the legal device that gives the creator of a literary, artistic, musical, or other creative work the sole right to publish and sell that work. Copyright owners have the right to control the reproduction of their work, including the right to receive payment for that reproduction. An author may grant or sell those rights to others, including publishers or recording companies. And finally, this is the unique thing that's been added: violation of that copyright is called infringement. So whenever you hear the word or on the news media of how X person or Y person has infringed the creative work of another person, it means that they have violated the copyright of that particular person. And by violating copyright, they could either made a reproduction of their work that the original author did not authorize, or they're making profit off of their work without consent from the original author, or compensation to the author. So here we have a table covering the Republic Act 8293, or the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines. This actually covers the copyright, what actually is covered under copyright. So in this case, we see that it covers literary works, art, photographic work, audiovisual work, sound recording, broadcast recording, trademark, and invention patent. So to start off, literary works could basically refer to any single book that you have ever read, any single book that has been published by a publisher, such as those Wattpad books that have been published in National Bookstore, etc. Next is art, which refers to any painting that you've seen, or also in this digital age, digital images, or photographs. Which then you have audiovisual work, sound recording. In this case, this can be music that you've recorded or composed, and broadcast recording. This refers to radio broadcast or television broadcast. Trademark, which is essentially trademark, and then finally invention patent, which is basically your right to your invention that you have created. Well, I won't go too deep into what trademarks are, but basically, if you want to know what a trademark is, think of a brand name such as Jollibee, McDonald's, or even Mang Inasal. Those words are trademarked by the company, and trademarking it ensures that no one else can actually use their name in order to actually sell or promote a product without the company's at least permission to do so. So here, in the next portion, we see the validity period. As you can see, while copyright can actually grant you rights over your work, copyright is not permanent. As you can see, there's an expiration date for your copyrighted piece of work. Now, why is there expiration for copyright if copyright enables me to protect my work from fraudulent selling, or copying. Well, we'll learn that later on in this particular lesson. But in short, it's actually a good thing that copyright has limits because of something called public domain. If you want to know what's public domain, please stay on the lesson so that we'll actually be able to tackle it. So first, for literary works, during the lifetime of the author plus 50 years after the death, meaning if a particular book such as say Hunger Games was published, the book Hunger Games is basically copyrighted by the author so long as they are alive. Then after their death, it will still be copyrighted for an additional 50 years after the author's death. So this can be a very long time depending on how long the author lives. And the author lives to be as long as 100. It could mean that their work could be copyrighted for 150 years. Now for art, it's clearly much less compared to literary works. Here, 25 years from the date of creation. So this is different from the lifetime of the author. Date of creation means from the date that particular piece of artwork or image has been made to 25 years from now, the copyright for that will expire. So even if the author is alive, if the artist or the author of that particular piece of art has already had has made that art for over 25 years ago, that particular art's copyright will already have expired, and so allowing anyone to be able to use it freely. Next is photographic and audiovisual work as well as sound recording. 50 years since the date of creation of that particular work, in the case of sound recording, when the recording took place. Then broadcast recording, which is 20 years from the date of broadcast. Then trademark, which is valid for 10 years and may be renewed for periods of 10 years. So this means that every 10 years, Jollibee, Mang Inasal, McDonald's, etc. have to essentially renew their trademarks over their names so that they can actually keep using and protect it from unauthorized usage. So they have to keep doing that and renew it every 10 years. Finally, invention patent, which is valid for 20 years from the filing date application, meaning 20 years after the first day that you filed an application for your patent. That means if I were to make a great invention this year in 2021, it will be protected by this invention patent for another 20 years. So by the year 2042, the copyrighted that work would have, my invention would have already been off patent, and anyone now can start using it. Okay, before continuing, I'll have another video play. This one is tackling what the concept of public domain that I earlier mentioned. This is actually rather important so that you'll understand why, on the contrary, even though copyright is very useful in protecting the rights of the author or the creator of that particular work, there's still a need for that right to also have an expiration date. In this video, this will teach you why it's important. So, I'll be playing the clip shortly.
What is the public domain? Why does it matter to you? The public domain is not a place. It's a concept that refers to everything not protected by copyright in the United States. It includes works that were never protected by copyright, as well as those whose term of protection has expired. If it's in the public domain, it's free to use. The existence of the public domain means that there is an extensive and growing cultural legacy, which is available to everyone as a resource for study, development, and material for new creative works. Let's explore how works become a part of the public domain. First, material that is not covered by copyright is in the public domain from the time it is created. For example, facts and ideas are not protected by copyright law and are therefore in the public domain. But note that some things that are not protected by copyright could be covered by other legal protections, such as patent or trademark laws. Second, a work can enter the public domain if it was protected by copyright law and the amount of time it was protected for has expired. Under the Constitution, copyright protection has a limited time. The Founding Fathers gave Congress the power to promote the progress of science by securing for a limited time to authors the exclusive right to writings. Copyright law has changed over time, so when and how a work expires changed too. Under current law, copyright protection covers an original and creative work as soon as it is fixed in a tangible medium, even if the owner has not registered the copyright. The term of copyright protection is the length of time that a work is protected. The term has changed several times over the years. The Copyright Office has a number of resources that discuss copyright terms and requirements, including our circulars. These resources can help you determine if a work is in the public domain. You can research copyright records on-site and at copyright.gov. But you do have to be careful before using material you think is in the public domain. The basis for a work could be material that is in the public domain, but someone else could have made new contributions to that material that may be protected by copyright. Take Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare's original play is in the public domain. There are lots of movies, books, and updated plays that people have created based on Shakespeare's original work, to which they have added their own original elements that are copyright protected. The new creative expression in these works may be protected by copyright. So, when seeking inspiration from a work in the public domain, go back to the original source. Materials in the public domain can be found all over. Libraries, museums, and archives are great resources. For more information about the public domain and the U.S. Copyright Office, visit copyright.gov.
Okay, so public domain. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, public domain is the realm embracing property rights that belong to the community at large, are unprotected by copyright or patent, and are subject to appropriation by anyone. So what's important here to note is the fact that it is subject to appropriation by anyone, meaning anyone can act once a piece of work has been in public domain as a result of the piece of work's copyright expiring. Anyone, me, you, Ma'am Lazon, can now actually begin using that piece of public domain work in whatever way they see fit. This is because it becomes the property of no longer the individual in this case, but becomes the property of the entire community. So here are some examples of public domain works. Myths, legends, folk tales. So any of the Philippine myths that you've heard, legends and folk tales, especially mga kwentong matatanda, those in particular are already in public domain. Next is the classic works of Sherlock Holmes, Frankenstein, and Romeo and Juliet. These particular pieces of literary work that you've already known for a long time, especially in movies, these are all already in the public domain. Meaning that anyone, any filmmaker, any writer can include these characters or write the story or even sell it if they want to, simply because these particular stories and figures are already in public domain. And finally, classical music like Mozart. So you can actually, so if I were to say want to make a video and it has Mozart composition on it, I don't have to worry about that music I don't have to worry about getting into trouble with the rights holder of Mozart, because one, Mozart's already in public domain, so anyone can now use it freely, and two, Mozart composed this hundreds of years ago, so I don't think he actually even would bother if someone were to use his work hundreds of years from now. Okay, moving on. Oh yeah, by the way, it's thanks to the fact that Sherlock Holmes, Frankenstein, Romeo and Juliet are in public domain. That's why you can get to see a bunch of movies and animation such as Moriarty and the Patriot and Romeo x Juliet, which are two particular anime I've heard of about concerning these particular characters. So, in review, I would like you to actually answer these questions once again. First, what is copyright? Second, what rights does it give to the author? And third, what is public domain? As usual, I would like you to write your answers on a yellow sheet of pad paper, or you can send it to me directly via Messenger. Either way, I will actually be expecting it shortly. But no need to rush right now, as I wish for you to actually focus entirely on my lesson. Before continuing, I'll give you some time to actually copy what's on screen. You may pause the video so that you'll be able to copy it. Okay, and moving on. Okay, here's some homework, a bonus. Now this particular bonus, this is actually entirely optional. There won't be deductions on your grade if you don't do this bonus. However, there are bonus points, that's why it's called a bonus, if you actually were to do this particular homework, okay? So you'll get more points. There's no downside if you don't do this, but you have every upside if you do this. So in a yellow bond paper, write a story summary of a piece of classical work found in public domain. So like the examples I mentioned, like Sherlock Holmes, Romeo and Juliet, Frankenstein, Dracula, those particular pieces of work that are found in public domain, I would wish for you to actually write a story summary of those particular classical pieces of literature. There's a lot of classical pieces of literature. If you're wondering, just a quick Google search will actually show considerable list. My advice for you is to try not to actually pick the first top answers or results when it comes to classical works, because otherwise, if all of you start picking the top results, you'll all start repeating the same stories. So as much as possible, I would at least encourage that you try to at least explore those lists of public domain stories and see if there's any story you didn't hear. Then afterwards, research it, write down the summary on the yellow bond paper. Thank you. Now we'll be covering the topic of plagiarism, which I actually hinted towards in our pre-test today. So plagiarism, you see there's a criminal with the word plagiarism. So plagiarism is an act, for instance, of using or closely imitating the language and thoughts of another author without authorization. The representation of that author's work as one's own, as by not crediting the original author. So in that pre-test, you recall, there was actually a case, I did actually mention at least trying to claim that the author's original work was not their own, or not properly citing or crediting the author as the creator of that particular piece of work. Or in this case, the act of using or imitating the intellectual property of the author. In this case, worded as language and thoughts of the other author. So when you commit plagiarism, it would be plagiarism if you were to use a particular piece of work that someone make and either claim it as your own, or actually make use of that particular piece of work without permission from the author. Or in this case, closely imitating, making a copy of the author's work. Like even if it's not exactly the exact same piece of work that the author made, you cannot, however, start making a piece of work based on the author's original idea without crediting them. Example would be in case of Harry Potter series. You cannot actually, even if you're not directly copying the books word for word, if you make a Harry Potter book that clearly is based on the author's work, and you make money from it, and you did not even bother to actually even ask permission for the author to even make a piece of work based on their world, you have effectively committed an act of plagiarism here. So it's always important, you can't just actually copy or at least just imitate very closely, and then this is an important piece of wording, very closely the work of another author without their permission, and also in some cases without compensation to that author. Now the part about closely imitating is important because while you're not allowed to closely imitate the work, you are, however, allowed to sort of take inspiration from the work. Now, in order to help differentiate whether or not you're taking inspiration from the work or just outright imitating it, you will have to at least do something creative with the original, with that idea seen before. And so in this case, while you cannot exactly make a copy of Harry Potter himself, you can potentially make a character that is clearly inspired by Harry Potter. However, that character cannot be such a close carbon copy of the original Harry Potter to the point that the two copies are almost, well, hard to distinguish. Though in these cases, however, authors, when they try to make such inspirations like this, such as making inspiration based on Harry Potter, they tend to consult at least legal experts in this case so as to ensure that they don't directly infringe on the right of the original author. Now, moving on. In terms of types of plagiarism, this is to help, as you've already been heard, we have actually over 6 types of plagiarism. So first, we'll start with the ghostwriter. The writer turns this type of plagiarism. The writer turns in another's work, word for word, as his or her own. So in this case, the author isn't taking inspiration anymore. He is just directly copying the work. This is literally the equivalent of someone copying your assignment or homework and then passing it off as their own. So this ghostwriter, they're just actually outright copying the author's original piece of work. Next is the photocopier. Now the difference between the ghostwriter and the photocopier is that the photocopier copies significant portions of text straight from a single source without alteration. So like if you ever use a photocopier, there will be segments of documents that you would like to have copies of, so you actually photocopy those particular segments. This is the same thing that the photocopier does. Compared to the ghostwriter, where they actually copy an entire word for word, here the photocopier only takes sizable portions of that text straight from them, and they do not ever credit the original author as the source of that particular text. Next is the potluck paper. The writer copies from different sources and alters the sentences to make them fit together while retaining most of the original phrasing. Sorry, excuse me. So the potluck paper, as you can see, it's similar to the photocopier in that they copy significant portions of text. But the difference is that they copy text not from a single source. It's important to note the difference. The photocopier only copies significant portions of text straight from only one source. However, the potluck paper, they copy their work from multiple different sources and they make alterations to it in order to ensure that they actually fit together, that they don't feel like they came from many different pieces of work. However, the original phrasing is present, so if one were to look at their creation, even if the sentences fit together, the way they're worded, it is too close to the original piece of work that they actually copied from. The remaining 3 other kinds of plagiarism includes the poor disguise, where the writer has altered the paper's appearance slightly by changing keywords or phrases. In this case, the writer, compared to the ghostwriter who just copies the entire work word for word, the poor disguise is a little smarter in that they will alter the certain keywords and phrases so that it would seem like the piece of work is its own. Think of the entire joke going around of okay, I'm letting you copy my homework, but make sure to change it a bit so that the teacher won't notice. And yes, as the teacher constantly checking your work, if you think I did not notice some of you repeating your pieces of work even though you modified some sentences, congratulations, you became a poor disguise. And honestly, after seeing so many pieces of work, there's a good chance I can at least pick out the poor disguises among you. Anyways, moving on, the labor of laziness. The writer takes the time to paraphrase most of the paper from other sources and make it all fit together. So here, the labor of laziness. This person's a little smarter than the potluck paper since instead of just trying to essentially just make sure the sentences fit but leave the original phrasing or how it's worded, in this case, the labor of laziness writer, they effectively do their best effort to paraphrase the paper so that at the very least, at the end of the day, it would at least look like it is their own piece of work. Now, in this case, the labor of laziness would technically not be under plagiarism if it wasn't for the fact that they are missing one key component here. And it is the fact that despite their paraphrasing and their attempts to make all those sections of text actually fit together in their work, they do not, however, as mentioned here, ever cite the original author. So in the end, the sin of the labor of laziness is that even though they're taking effort to paraphrase the work so that it will not be a direct copy of another work, and they make sure that all the sentences fit together so that it doesn't look like it's made from multiple sources, the labor of laziness still actually claims the piece of work as their own, as they do not make actually any citation to to those original authors or sources that he used. And finally, the self-stealer. The writer borrows generously from his or her previous work. So the way this works, if you were to write a piece of thesis and then you actually put citation and then you put information and in that particular thesis there are actually entire segments there that came straight from your previous work. However, you do not make any indication in that particular thesis that those segments are from your previous work, and so you make it seem like those segments are actually part of your current original work. This is the self-stealer. You're essentially stealing from yourself, and what actually makes this actually more apparent is that you're not even making any indication that those pieces of segments came from your own previous work. You're effectively trying to claim those segments as part of your original work instead of honestly citing or indicating that those segments are from your previous work. Moving on. Sources not cited but still plagiarized include the forgotten footnote. The writer mentions an author's name from a source but neglects to include specific information and location of the material referenced. Then the misinformer. The writer provides inaccurate information regarding the sources, making it impossible to find them. In this case, I really would highly recommend once you start writing your thesis papers to make sure to at least be as accurate as possible so that when anyone wishes to trace your sources, they can at least easily find them. Next, the too perfect paraphrase. The writer properly cites the source but neglects to put in quotation marks on the text that has been copied word for word or close to it. And this is basically Now this is something that all too often you may forget to do, but always remember that whenever you're actually taking the word straight out of someone else, make sure to always put quotation marks. This actually tells the reader that the sentence they are reading came from someone else and you're directly quoting them. Next, we have the resourceful citer. The writer properly cites all the sources, paraphrasing and using quotations properly, so it seems like he's doing it correct, right? Well, the catch, the paper contains almost no original work. So in this case, the resourceful citer, even though he did everything, he seems to have done everything right, cites all his sources, paraphrased it properly, and even properly put the proper quotations, his paper is entirely not even doesn't contain any of his original work. Each and every part of it is from someone else, and so even if it's all properly cited, if one were to look at the paper, he didn't actually put any input, his own input in the work. It's completely composed of everyone else's work with no input from him. Okay, then finally, the perfect rhyme. The writer properly quotes and cites sources in some places but goes on to paraphrase other arguments from those sources without citation. So in this case, the writer, he only does his job of properly quoting and citing his sources half the time or part of the time. In one part, he at least properly does the proper quotations and citations, but in another part, he goes on to paraphrase and use other pieces of arguments made from other people, but does not cite them. So here we'll be covering now fair use. Give me a moment. So before beginning, I'll be playing a short video on fair use, and afterwards, well, I'll just be playing this video shortly, okay?
When we go on the internet, it's common to scroll through other people's images, videos, writing, and artwork. We might even want to use them for projects in school or at home. And we might think, I found it online, so it's mine. But that's not the case. We can't treat things we find online like a free-for-all. The good news is that there are legitimate ways to use material we find online. But first, we need to be aware of three concepts: copyright, public domain, and fair use. Why is all of this so important? For one, there are legal reasons for protecting everyone's creative work. And there are also ethical reasons to give credit to the people who create the things we see and find online. Let's start with the legal reasons why we should think twice before copying and using someone's work. The first is copyright. Copyright is a legal protection that creators have over the things they create. Copyright requires people to get permission before they copy, paste, alter, or share what someone else has made. Most things that we find, download, and copy and paste from the internet are copyrighted. This means that the people who created them own the content and have a say in how they're used. But that doesn't mean that everything on the internet can't be used. Some creators indicate that their content is okay to be used by others, and other content might fall under what's called public domain. Let's look at what public domain means. When we search for content that's in the public domain, it means these creative works are not copyrighted and are free to use without permission by anyone, however they want. According to US law, some content becomes available as public domain after a certain number of years have passed since its creation. There are also specific images and documents published by the government that are considered public domain. So, when in doubt, search public domain to find a ton of things that are totally free to use. Now, if we want to use a photo, a video, music, or other content that's copyrighted, there are still a few things we can do. We can simply reach out and ask the creator for permission. Many creators are happy to give permission to reproduce their work, as long as they're given credit. The third concept to take advantage of is called fair use. Fair use allows us to use copyrighted work without permission, but only in certain ways and in specific situations. These conditions involve 4 areas to consider: amount, purpose, nature, and effect. First, we can only use a small amount of the original work. This means someone can't copy the whole copyrighted song in their dance video, but they can use a short clip of it. Second, there has to be a new purpose in the project, meaning that we transform the original work into something new and different. Next, it's easier to claim fair use if the nature of the original work is non-fiction or based in fact, rather than creative or fictional. And finally, we need to ask ourselves whether the effect of the new work negatively affects the creator or the value of the original content. For instance, are we charging for or making money off someone else's work? Claiming fair use is determined on a case-by-case basis, but it's more likely acceptable if it's 1. For schoolwork and education, 2. For criticizing or commenting on something, 3. For news reporting, or 4. For comedy or as a parody of something. We can think of fair use kind of like a square, and ask ourselves, is it fair and square? So that's the legal stuff. But let's not forget the ethical considerations when using content found online. Think about it. If you created something original and put it online, wouldn't you want others to give you credit for your work? What if they changed it or made money off it and no one knew you were the original creator? That's just not right. So remember, when we go online in search of things to use, keep these 3 concepts in mind: copyright, public domain, and fair use. We're all creative thinkers and creators, and it's always important to give credit where credit is due.
Okay, so fair use. Fair use means you can use copyright materials without a license only for certain purposes. These include commentary, criticism, reporting, research, and teaching. So remember what I talked about when it comes to copyright? Well, and also what you've learned from public domain, here's actually something that's more of a middle ground of those two called fair use, where you are able to use copyrighted materials without the need to license or actually give compensation to the original author. However, this is strictly limited to specific use cases. As we see here, it's either used for commentary, So in this case, when it comes to videos and it comes to teaching lessons or academia, you can actually, if you're in a film class and the teacher has to show a particular film of a recent movie, they're allowed to show that film in class, provided of course that they provide every now and then commentary, such as commentary about how the way shots are framed, how the actors did their roles, or even the literary devices used in the film in order to advance the plot or impart information to the audience. Next is criticism, which in this case is most often found in reviews for movies, video games, and books. Reporting, such as think of ABS-CBN and 24 Horas, or GMA. Next is research and teaching. Now these two are very much related to academia, and so for the purposes of doing your thesis, or at least in my case, teaching you guys on media literacy, I am under fair use allowed to at least use copyrighted materials, but only for the purposes of education, etc. So guidelines for fair use. Here, the majority of the content you create must be your own. Give credit to the copyright holder and don't make money off the copyrighted work. So in this case, in order for my use of copyright material to be fair use, I have to first, majority of the content you create must be your own. Meaning, even though I use meaning the copyrighted material I have is only there to enhance my lesson and it's not my entire lesson. I still have majority of original input from myself in creating the lesson. I merely add copyrighted material only to enhance it further. Next, give credit to the copyright holder. So in this case, whenever you use a piece of work from someone else, make sure to at least properly credit them. That is, make sure to at least give a correct, proper citation in your work, indicating that this particular information you got it from them. And as you've been noticing, I've been using some videos in this particular lesson to help enhance our learning. Towards the end, I will actually be adding at least a link down in the video below on the sources that I use in order to on where I got those videos for this particular lesson. So there's that. And finally, don't make money off the copyrighted work. This means that the particular work I make, I actually at least must not be profiting off of it, as in like selling it off. Now, here are some bonus questions. As always, these bonus questions, you're not required to answer them, but you get bonus points if you do answer them. As always, write them down on a yellow pad, piece of paper, or send them to me directly so I can actually be able to grade it. Now first, what is plagiarism? Second, what is fair use? And third, can you cite instances where you unknowingly commit any of the examples of plagiarism? So I'll be giving you guys a few moments in order to copy these questions. You may actually pause the video so that you may have more time to copy. And okay, next slide. Here, I'll actually be playing shortly afterwards a video about digital citizenship. So afterwards, we'll actually be proceeding with the lesson after I play the short video. So okay, I should be playing the video right about now. Okay, so on the topic of responsible digital citizenship refers to having the appropriate knowledge and skills to effectively use digital technologies to communicate with others, participate in society, and create and consume digital content. Responsible digital citizenship is essential, especially now in the face of a technology-saturated world. To help to helping media information consumers achieve and understand digital literacy, as well as ensuring cyberbullying prevention, online safety, digital responsibility, and digital health and wellness. Mhm. So in this particular lesson, in this particular part about responsible digital citizenship, it is basically best summarized as being able to having the knowledge and skills in order to use many of our digital technologies today, like smartphones, and computers and smartphones, those two devices in particular. But besides having the knowledge in order to actually use those devices, and also being able to surf and navigate the web, such as being able to use Google, YouTube, etc. It's responsible digital citizenship also covers ensuring preventing cyberbullying, promoting online safety, promoting your digital responsibility, and digital health and wellness. Now, as for the topic digital health and wellness, we'll actually be covering that later in the form of a short topic concerning internet addiction and etc. And of course, oh well. Okay, so let's move on. I'm not gonna mention all those. Any of you who actually used to actually before this pandemic went to internet cafes a lot. So here we'll be covering netiquette. Netiquette or network etiquette is a set of socially constructed rules and norms for behaving and communicating responsibly in an online environment. While not all of these rules hold legal power nor are strictly enforced, it's important that you, as a media consumer, have a well-defined set of guidelines that helps keep you or the people you know in check in terms of your online activity and presence. The impact of the advent of technology is a double-edged sword, an ironic one, that is, as it brings people together whilst who otherwise cannot meet. However, at the same time, mediated communication makes human interaction less personal. So etiquette, this is simply best summarized as etiquette on the internet. And while in the country this may not hold legal power, this is still something you have to do simply because this is just proper etiquette in general. Finally, while technology has made it easier for us to meet with other people, the method we use to meet with other people, that is via screens, phones, or at least even forum posts, these in particular have actually made human interaction less personal. And as a study has shown, with less personal human interaction, there's also a less ability to be able to empathize with a person in general, which makes you more likely to be rude to that person and act in ways you would never act should you actually meet that person in real life. Under netiquette, today in an era that much of our communication happens online or electronically, where we most often just face devices, it is easy to forget that those at the receiving end of the line are actual human beings. Good etiquette is derived from the same standards set in real life. So, in other words, how you act online, ask yourself if you would act like that in real life. If not, then don't do it also online. And always remember that the comments that you're reading in a video or are actually not just words or strings of sentences, but just actually made by another human being on the other side of the screen. Okay, so when it comes to netiquette in general, here are some 10 rules that you must remember. First, rule 1, remember the human. Remember the human. Remember that the receiver on the other side of your computer or phone is another human person capable of understanding, feeling, and getting hurt. Putting yourself in others' places can put everything in the right perspective. Meaning you have to at least learn to at least ask yourself, how would this make the other person feel if I were to be treated like this? Next is, before you send a message, upload that photo or send that tweet, ask yourself, how would the other person or people at the end of the line feel if I do or say this? So the same thing as I mentioned before. And finally, always put in mind that empathy is one of the most powerful motivations for some basic decency online. Now, in terms of this part over here, I do have a particular activity, at least a presentation I have set up just for this alone. So do take note of that. So number 2, adhere to the same standards of behavior online that you follow in real life. Good etiquette is derived from the same standards set in real life. While it can be argued that standards of behavior may be different in the virtual world, they should not be any lower. In real life, we are constantly reminded to be respectful of other people, mindful of our words, follow the law, and other social rules. This holds true for cyberspace etiquette as well. While the chances of getting caught or punished may be slim, your accountability and liability for your actions aren't totally erased. Thus, you should do your best to act within the laws and ethical standards in the online environment just as you would in real life. So fairly straightforward. Next rule, number 3. Rule 3, know where you are in cyberspace. The internet may be as vast as the Earth's oceans or the outer space, with parts least visited, not discovered, and some deemed even dangerous. Today, you are presented with a wide array of internet domains and websites. In this context, your manner of interaction may differ from one domain to another. What's perfectly acceptable in one area may be dreadfully rude in another, and depending on where you are in the virtual world, the same written communication can be acceptable in one area where it might be considered inappropriate in another. So in this case, think of a chat room where essentially it's between your friends and another chat room where you're essentially it's between co-workers. In both domains, there's a different set of standards where while you can be more casual with your friends and even possibly just may even sounding rude even though it's just only joking around, in your professional work or professional communication chat room, you have to act professionally, you have to communicate professionally. And so you cannot actually be just act like they are your friends, at least in the chat room. You have to at least act like you're at least professional workers in a professional environment. Next rule, rule 4, respect other people's time and bandwidth. Have you ever felt that time passes faster now than it does before? In this fast-paced time, people are pushed to squeeze in school, work, social life, chores, errands to run, sleep, personal wellness, and more in 24 hours. In the context of etiquette, however, you post something online, send a message to someone, you're taking up a few precious minutes from the already limited time of another. Most people today lead busy lives just like you do and don't have time to read or respond to frivolous emails or discussion posts. Bandwidth is the information carrying capacity of the wires and channels that connect everyone in cyberspace. So essentially, this rule 4 can be summarized as don't actually try to waste people's time with information that most likely may not be important to them. And second, especially for most of us who are using mobile data, please, on the contrary, please respect our mobile data and try not to actually have us unnecessarily burn a lot of data just for something that isn't quite important. Next lesson. Now, rule 5, make yourself look good online. In the real world, other people's immediate judgment of you would be based on your physical appearance, your demeanor, how you speak, how you carry yourself, or even how you dress. In the virtual world, you'll be judged by the quality of your writing or the content that you post. Both worlds are filled with prying eyes, and whether we like it or not, thus, we need to be mindful of what we call our virtual self. So keep the following tips in mind. Making yourself look good online does not mean you are pretending to be someone else for others to like you. Rather, it means that you ought to step up in making sure that content you produce should reflect that of a responsible digital citizen until such time that it becomes your lifestyle. So in terms of how I could we best summarize to Rule 5, Rule 5 is essentially just actually act the way you would act in real life, or at least the way you would act in real life, so that you at least be respected. That's what Rule 5 is. Just at least on the contrary, make sure that you are essentially as presentable as you are in online as you are in real life. Next rule, share expert knowledge. The strength of the internet is the extent of the information it offers and various sources this information comes from. While credibility issues are concerned, the internet as an overall knowledge bank continues to grow and expand as experts contribute facts that people constantly consume. Although Netiquette lists several red flags, sharing your knowledge on something doesn't count as one. You have recently expanded your knowledge about subjects that might be of interest to others. So in this case, rule 6, sharing is caring. While there are some red flags that you have to consider, like you cannot. Okay, now this is important. When it comes to sharing information with people online, you must not share with them personal information, like your personal email, your phone number, or even the password of an account you have. You must not share such confidential, if not even crucial, personal information. However, you can at least share with other people online your expertise, such as, say, if you're good at something and other people wish to know more about it, you can go ahead and share that knowledge with others online. Just like me, where I'm currently sharing my understanding of media literacy with everyone here. Next lesson. Rule 7, help keep flame wars under control. Okay, anyone who's aware of this will know these are essentially long arguments in comment sections, which you can occasionally find. Like if you're scrolling down on YouTube and you essentially start seeing a comment with lots of replies, but when you click on it and look at the replies, you notice it's only just two people arguing back and forth. That's essentially flame wars. Flame is what other people do when they express a strongly held opinion without holding back any emotion. These are the people who express their opinion in an aggressive or offensive manner, usually resulting in flame wars where two or three people exchange angry posts between one another. There's a thin line between expressing your opinion in a respectful manner and attacking the opposite party to prove your point. That line is something you have to keep in mind whenever you are confronted with a disagreement with someone online. So in this case, the general point of Rule 7 is to at least be respectful to other people, even if you have a strong disagreement with them, and try not to essentially start a long reply chain where it's just you two arguing back and forth. Rule 8, respect other people's privacy. Much like how you do not want your phone opened just by anyone or your messages read by someone without your permission, other people value their privacy as well. That's something you have to always remember, especially in cyberspace where you get to access loads of information. The advent of the internet has put almost everyone's lives under a microscope. Even so, information that is private in nature must remain private, and that is a right that needs to be asserted, a right that everyone is afforded, the right to privacy. Which nowadays, okay, this is actually a little something addition I could add. But every time you actually post something, or every time you use a company's social media like Facebook actually also gains an aggregation of your data on your usage habits, etc. And Facebook is actually free to use this information in whatever way it sees fit, which has actually been written down in their terms and conditions. Essentially, what's important for you to know is that even if a company like Facebook is freely using the data they are collecting about you from every post you make and every post you like, you still have a right to privacy, and you must always assert your right to privacy, even if, on the contrary, a big company is actually prying into your personal life via actually aggregating all the types of posts or content that you actually posted or liked on their platform. You must always remember to assert your own right to privacy, and that, okay, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts here. And that's also important that you also value and protect your own privacy as well. Wherever you are in the online world, you may be exposed to some private or personal information that needs to be handled with care. Okay, so in this case, for this last part, I would like to also add one more important thing. Concerning this, there's something called doxing attacks. Now, what are these doxing attacks? Doxing is where a person purposely, knowingly, and maliciously post information about someone else online. This information can even include their family members' names, their phone numbers, their addresses, and they're just posting it online. And the reason why they're posting or doxing that person in general is that they are posting that personal information online, that their phone numbers or even their addresses, for the sole purpose of not only that other people in the world may know, but that in the possibility that other people would actually start harassing that particular person because Now that their personal information is online, people can just find them if they want to. So whatever you do, if you actually discover personal information being posted online, please do not share it, okay? And please handle such personal information with care. The last thing you need is to essentially start actually participating in a doxing attack where someone is essentially broadcasting out someone's personal information. That's really nasty. Even if, at least to the best of my memory, that doxing is not technically illegal, it's just one of those things where just because it's not legal doesn't mean you should do it. Okay? Rule 9, don't abuse your power. Ah, yes. Best summarized as with great power comes great responsibility. Uncle Spider-Man's uncle, Peter Parker's uncle. Just like in the real world, people in cyberspace have their own influence and power, some with power greater than others. Okay, this is best summarized if you've ever seen YouTubers with big followings. Yeah, people like that. These people are the technology wizards, expert with years of experience and system administrators, among others. If you are one of these powerful people, or if you are someone with knowledge powerful enough to navigate through cyberspace expertly, remember that knowing more than others does not give you the right to take advantage of them. So, as such, just remember that Spider-Man quote from from Spider-Man movies: "With great power comes great responsibility." Just because you actually have greater knowledge doesn't mean it gives you the right to abuse others or take advantage of them. And rule 10, be forgiving at other people's mistakes. Not everyone has the same amount of experience working in the virtual world. As you move along and around cyberspace, at some point you will bump into a ridiculous post, a nonsense photo, a poorly constructed sentence, or a stupid question. Practice tolerance when you see minor and forgivable mistakes. If you feel compelled to correct and respond to a mistake, do so preferably in a private and as politely and respectfully as possible. This applies to everyday communication too, whether you are talking to work colleagues, family, or friends. Most especially the part about asking stupid questions. If someone online asks you a seemingly stupid question such as, how do I actually say sign into YouTube? Just don't actually derail them even and instead just be polite and be helpful, okay? So question, how do you plan to apply these lessons? How can you be a good citizen? And what can you do to better assist others on the net? So you can go ahead and write the answer to these questions down on a yellow pad paper, or you can actually just messenger it to me directly. Either way, I do look forward to actually hearing your answers on these particular topics. Also, for a moment, I'll give you some time in order to actually copy down these questions. You may post a video so that you have more time. And moving on, the digital divide. The digital divide is the unequal or disparity between demographic groups in terms of access to and use of or knowledge of ICT. Different segments have varying levels of knowledge and access to digital developments due to a number of factors such as which include but not limited to race, age, education, income, socioeconomic status, and geographical location. The digital divide may be further grouped into three divisions as relayed by the Manila Times author Nomi Lardizabal Normi Lardizabal Dado, excuse me, sorry. So the digital divide. Which of these people shown are better equipped in the digital age? Okay, moving on. The digital divide and digital immigrants. The, the people born in the internet and digital technology age are who we call digital natives. The term is often used synonymously with millennial, though not all digital natives are millennials and not all millennials are digital natives. Regardless, digital natives are those that are immersed in digital technology growing up, making them more knowledgeable and more comfortable in the digital age. Digital immigrants, on the other hand, are those born before the widespread adoption of computers and the internet and have had to adopt digital and have to adopt digital technology later in life. So in short, digital natives, those born around the time when digital technology was present, such as all of you, my pretty students, my beautiful, handsome students, and the digital immigrants are those people who were born before our time, during mga times like 80s, 70s, during 80s, etc., where they have to adapt now to this new world of digital technology. The digital rich and the digitally poor. A huge part of the digital divide, especially in developing countries such as the Philippines, is the differences in the socio-economic status of social groups. The financial capacity of an individual affects his ability to purchase a gadget and reliable internet access. Technology has made numerous positive implications in education, healthcare, transportation, and many more. Learning materials and resources may now be conveniently accessed online, and technology has paved the way for advancements in medicine and healthcare. Transportation is now made more convenient and comfortable. The digitally rich and the digitally poor. Basically, the people who can afford, or the haves of who can afford digital gadgets, proper internet access, and the digitally poor are those who cannot. The digitally rich and the digitally poor. In a country like the Philippines, where a huge chunk of our population falls below the poverty line, acquiring digital devices, let alone securing a stable internet connection, is at the bottom of the list of priorities, as we have actually things like bills and food to worry about. Okay, quick question, which is another bonus. Write your reflection on your access of digital information in the digital age. While this particular question is actually a bonus, I would definitely would like to hear from you about your experience in your access of digital information. The digital skills and digital unskilled. A discrepancy in terms of digital skills occur because of the lack of funds and opportunities. Similarly to the aforementioned, lack of digital skills may stem from an individual's socioeconomic status. A person belonging to a family falling below the poverty line would most probably have less to no access to digital devices and stable internet connection. In effect, he will fall behind on updated information, up-to-date learning resources, and even on job openings. People try to overcome financial challenges to become digitally skilled. Internet addiction. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines addiction as a compulsive, chronic, physiological, or psychological need for a habit-forming substance, behavior, or activity having harmful physical, psychological, or social effects. When we speak of addiction, we commonly associate it with a substance like recreational or illegal drugs. However, due to the widespread use of the internet, the digital age has ushered an addiction that has become a growing concern in society: internet addiction. Internet addiction may come in different forms such as social media addiction, video game addiction, cybersex or online sex addiction, and online gambling addiction. Oh, one more important thing. This is just some extra information I would wish to add to enhance the lesson, but as a result of the pandemic, more and more people are now cooped up in their homes, and as a result, more people are now consuming more digital media. The end result is that there's now been rising cases of at least internet addiction in one form or the other. And in currently the most actually concerning rise in internet addiction has been online gambling addiction, where essentially people have actually, with the extra money some of them may actually be getting from government assistance and with nothing else to spend it on, some have actually turned to entertain themselves via online gambling. As such, it's becoming a rising problem. Okay, before we continue, I'll actually once again play another short video about internet addiction, and after that, we'll actually continue off. So I'll shortly play that video right about now. Internet addiction. Aside from its educational and informational functions, the web has offered media users a higher and more enjoyable level of recreation with all the games, social media, and even online shopping, which in effect makes users more glued to their devices. Internet addiction may be developed due to several factors like stress, anxiety, depression, other forms of addiction, lack of social support, or lack of parental guidance or inactivity. This has become actually an even greater concern during the pandemic, especially with the rise of people now, on the contrary, having to sit around their homes. Cyberbullying. Okay, so now we'll actually hit the topic of cyberbullying. Online violence, cyberbullying, and digital harassment affect over 70% of young people globally, according to the United Nations Children's Fund, as it called on internet users to be kind online, prevent this form of violence. By definition, cyberbullying is a type of offensive action toward another which takes place using electronic technology. Cyberbullies post or send harmful, hatefully, and mean messages as well as images which are deliberately meant to mock, ridicule, embarrass, hurt, or attack a person. What's worse about cyberbullying is that online content used by cyberbullies may stay on the web for a long time. So, as previously mentioned, cyberbullying, this is basically, in essence, another form of harassment online. But the worst thing about cyberbullying compared to offline bullying is that what actually is posted online tends to stay online for a long period of time. So the link, so if if someone posted in this example, in an example I'll give a video of something embarrassing that happened to you. If it's posted on the internet, it will be there for a long time, and even if removed, there's probably a copy of it somewhere on the internet. Cyberbullying and bullying in general also feed a continuum of damaging behavior. Victims of cyberbullying are more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, skip school, receive poor grades, and experience low self-esteem and health problems. So, as much as I would even though I'm not actually been very communicating with you guys, as much as possible, please just be kind to each other, okay? Cyberbullying examples. So here, another short video I'll play shortly on the examples of cyberbullying that can occur online. And then after that, we'll proceed on and actually be shortly wrapping up this lesson.
Top 10 forms of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is a worldwide problem that's growing fast. In this video, we'll take you through the top 10 forms of cyberbullying so you have the knowledge to protect your children. 1. Exclusion. Exclusion can happen in several ways. Your child might be deliberately excluded from online activities, conversations, or social media tags. Children who don't have the latest technology, such as a mobile phone, are prone to exclusion. 2. Harassment. Harassment is sustained and intentional bullying, comprised of abusive or threatening messages sent to your child or to a group. This can severely affect a child's mental well-being. 3. Outing. Outing is the act of publicly humiliating a child or group through the online posting of private or embarrassing information without consent. Even reading your child's messages on their mobile phone out loud can be considered a form of outing. 4. Cyberstalking. Cyberstalking is a dangerous form of cyberbullying in which attackers harass victims through online communications like email or social media. It also refers to adults using the internet to contact and meet young people for abusive purposes. 5. Fraping. Fraping is when someone logs into your child's social media account and impersonates them, posting inappropriate content in their name. Remember, everything rude or otherwise posted online may never be fully gone, even if deleted. 6. Fake profiles. Fake profiles can be created by someone to hide their real identity with the intention of cyberbullying your child. The cyberbully may also use someone else's email or mobile phone to harass them. 7. Dissing. Dissing is sending or posting cruel information about your child online to damage their reputation or friendships. It also includes posting damaging photos, screenshots, or videos online. 8. Trickery. Trickery involves gaining your child's trust so that secrets can be shared publicly online. A cyberbully will befriend your child, leading them into a false sense of security before sending their private information to others. 9. Trolling. Trolling means deliberately provoking a response through the use of insults on online forums and social media sites. A troll will personally attack your child, aiming to make them angry and provoke a response. 10. Catfishing. Catfishing involves stealing online identities and recreating social networking profiles for deceptive purposes. Catfishers look at your child's profile and take information to create a fake persona. This could involve using personal information, potentially damaging your child's online reputation. Please share this video with other parents to help spread awareness and put a stop to cyberbullying.
Okay, I have one final last lesson to give. This will be actually a presentation I made specifically on what kind of information should you actually share online or not, okay? So I'll begin playing it shortly. Okay, so welcome. Okay, so hello guys and welcome to my actually presentation. Yes, I'm actually playing Minecraft right now, but this is actually a different version of Minecraft. This is actually called Minecraft Education Edition. This is actually a program that teachers were actually given a special version of Minecraft specifically made for education. So right now I'll actually begin to actually give my presentation. So we'll actually be tackling about sharing over there. Okay, so for this particular presentation, we'll be tackling sharing. Social media. Okay. Okay, so if you actually were paying attention, this activity is all about information sharing. Which piece of information should you share and make public? Which should you make private and share only with friends and family? Or which information should you not share at all? So in case to begin with, my family and I will be gone on vacation for the next week. Share, chirp with, should you share it on public, private, or don't share? Now in this case, information where your family will be going for vacation, this should be correct. Not sharing your whereabouts is always the safest option. It's really important that you actually do not share information on your location. Otherwise, bad actors could actually look up that online and worst case scenario, they'll actually pay you a visit. Next, you received first place in Riverwood Elementary's 5th grade science fair. Share block book post with, public, private, don't share. When it comes to information or posts about your achievements, it's best to keep them private. Sharing personal accomplishments with close friends and family is a great way to keep them updated about your lives. But as such, don't just share personal accomplishments with the public. Always try to make sure that you at least set the privacy settings of your accounts to private for information such as this. Next, video of you playing your favorite video game. Share VidTube link with private, public, don't share. Now in this case though, the best answer here, now this is interesting because unless you're putting any personally identifiable information in that video of you playing your favorite video game. All three options of this are actually valid in a sense. But in this case, here. While you should always get your friends' permission to post videos online, posting videos of things you enjoy can be a great way to find other people who have similar interests. It could also be a great creative outlet. So in this case, when it comes to at least doing something you're enjoying, provided you're not actually putting any personally identifiable information, it may be safe to post publicly. But if you're uncertain of whether something should be posted publicly, either don't share it or keep it private. Next, a video of your sibling doing an embarrassing dance. Share, click block, link with, public, private, don't share. Now this is really a good test of etiquette because while a lot of us would probably share this embarrassing video just to act with others just to get a laugh, it's best really to be polite and don't share. Correct. Sharing embarrassing videos can hurt others' feelings. It's best to just hit the delete button. Another important information to note is that, as we've already discussed already, information shared online stays online for a long time. So if you did share such an embarrassing video, it will stay online for probably a very long period of time. So, and even if you delete the original video, there's a good chance someone already made a copy of it, so it's already out there on the internet. A picture of your friend's birthday invitation. Share quick topic post with, public, private, don't share. Ah, yes, this one. Just a little something personal I have to mention. Some person did the exact same thing and shared a picture of the birthday invitation, and the next thing they realized was that about 100 people already came by their friends in birthday on their so correct. The party's host will take care of sending out invites. Not just that, just whatever you do, don't send information like invites out with anyone. There's a good chance unwanted party crashers will come by. Diamond Trophy. Whenever you post information online, it's always a good idea to consider the real world effects it may have. Is providing too much information about you or someone else? Does it have potential for harm? Write down your thoughts in the book, then place it in the chest. Okay, so I'll be concluding this short presentation. As such, for all those watching, I would like you to also, at the very least, make also a short reflection of what you thought of this little short video let's play presentation I made. And be sure to actually include it in your answer sheets that to be passed 2 weeks from now, okay? So as always, stay safe everyone, and stay amazing. Okay, finally, to wrap this up, I'll be actually giving you your required homework. This is actually concerning the Republic Act 8293 or Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines, which we've already discussed. For this, I would like you to research and download a copy of the Republic Act 8293 Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines and answer the following questions based on the aforementioned provision. First, what kind of intellectual work does this law cover? Second, what penalties does the law impose for groups or individuals who may be found guilty of such offense? Next, look up online on your favorite piece of work like movie, music, etc. and determine whether its copyright will expire and move to the public domain. And next, do you think the public domain is very helpful to society? Now, the questions here are related directly to Republic Act 8293. While these questions are something I wish to add in order for us to help explore this part of law called the public domain. Now, the public domain is really useful because since works on public domain are free for everyone to get creative with, this has resulted in some very interesting works and has actually helped further advance our knowledge and enjoyment of the world. And with that, thank you very much for watching my video. Thank you very much for being here today and sitting through my lesson. And as such, as always, stay safe and stay amazing. Adelante!